Langford for the win. Yes! Yes!
Steps back, three-pointer.
College basketball. This is March Madness.
Welcome back to another edition of the Flop Warning. We are back live for our Men's Monday edition of the show with so much to discuss on this beautiful afternoon here in Bloomington, Indiana. I'm your host, Hayden Smith, joined alongside Cole Nobby and Elias Corey, our producer, Leah Blosser. Thank you all so much for being on this episode of the Flop Warning. Guys, like I just said, we've got a lot to discuss, and we're going to get started with conference tournaments that are coming up. Yes, it is the month of March, and let's get started right off the bat, not even waste any time, and let's start talking about the Missouri Valley Conference. Elias, you've had a lot to say about some teams here in the Missouri Valley Conference. Let's go on ahead and take a look at some of our competitors in that conference and some of our top competition. Elias, I'm going to go straight to you.
Absolutely. So the Missouri Valley Conference, I'm going to start by saying the Missouri Valley Conference has made me really sad in the last couple of weeks because I was really hoping that two teams were going to get into the tournament from that conference. I was really hoping, maybe Drake messes around and wins the tournament. Indiana State gets in as an at-large because those are two really good teams that I think as we start to get into this, Selection Sunday talk, there are teams that are deserving and then there are teams that are just.
You don't think Indiana State could potentially still get an at-large bid if they don't win the tournament?
Here's the thing. I think Indiana State, if they're going to lose another game, has to be to Drake for them to still get in.
Okay.
Because otherwise they're looking at a quad 3 loss.
Okay.
They're looking at a bad loss if they don't win their conference tournament.
So taking a look at the whole tournament as a whole, the number one seed and the regular season champions, the Indiana State Sycamores from over in Terre Haute. And then in the number 2 seed at the bottom side of the bracket, you've got Drake, 3 Bradley, and 4 Northern Iowa. All of those teams get the bye. Going down the line from there, you've got 5 Belmont, 6 Southern Illinois, 7 Illinois State, 8 Murray State, 9 Missouri State, 10 Evansville, 11 Illinois Chicago, and 12 Valparaiso. Cole, I'll go to you here now. Really, at that top side of the bracket, do you think it's just Indiana State's to lose?
I do a little bit, but I worry about if UNI is the team they play in the semifinals, are they going to look ahead to Drake a little bit? This is a UNI team that is not bad, just outside the top 100 in the net. And I think kind of the same for Drake. If they look a little bit ahead, they're going to have to face Bradley, who's been a good competitor all year. So, yeah, I think it's Indiana State and Drake, and it does, to Elias's point, it is bad that Indiana State's probably not going to get in. And, I mean, if they would have ran the table in the conference or had that only lost to Drake, they could have had an at-large, resume, worthy resume of being an at-large team. But now I think, this is going to be a one-bid team.
Yeah,
one-bid league.
Exactly. I mean, you got to take a look at Indiana State and admire what they've done this season. Robbie Avelia has been absolutely tremendous. But, again, they're going to have to probably eventually take on a very good Drake team who is 16-4 in the Missouri Valley Conference. Indiana State 17-3. Overall, they're 26-5. Elias, again, odds are, and what we're going to look ahead here, Indiana State, Drake in the championship. Who comes out on top?
Indiana State. I think, and this is maybe a little bit bold, but I think there's not a lot of teams that can beat Indiana State if they're shooting the way they can. I mean, surely there are teams that are going to be able to defend them and get them off their marks and fly at shooters. But Indiana State's just shooting the ball in a way that we haven't really seen a team do this year from all areas of the court, right?
They're such a well put together team. They really are.
They can score 1 through 5. Anybody on that team can score the ball. I mean, look at Robbie Avila. You mentioned him just a second ago. You wouldn't look at this kid and think basketball player. He had 35 the other night for a career high. Like this is a team that can score 1 through 5, which is what you need to be successful in March. When the game is on the line, you need a point. That they can beat almost any team in the country. I think if they play the way they have for most of the regular season, they'll run this tournament. If they play how they did against Illinois State and Southern Illinois, they could get bounced early, which would be really sad to see the potential of this team go to waste.
That championship game in the Missouri Valley Conference will be this Sunday on CBS. Much must-watch TV there. in the Missouri Valley Conference. We'll go on ahead and move on to our next conference tournament that is already put together and take a look at the WCC, the West Coast Conference. Guys, this is another league that definitely just seems like it's two teams and it's theirs to lose right now. Number 1 seeded St. Mary's, the regular season champs in the WCC, and then number 2 Gonzaga. Now, the Zags were able to technically pull off the upset against St. Mary's not too long ago. So once again, these two teams, where this is a conference tournament that just flips my entire brain upside down where how this is aligned, because it's technically, what is this, a triple bye essentially for both St. Mary's and Gonzaga. All they got to do is win one game to move on to the WCC championship game. Again, guys, is this just St. Mary's and Gonzaga's tournament to lose?
I think this one is more so than the Missouri Valley. I mean, especially the way it's set up. I mean, St. Mary's and Gonzaga have to win one game, and then they're back playing each other. And I question if St. Mary's can win this one, actually. I think Gonzaga is playing so well that, I mean, beating St. Mary's and San Francisco back-to-back the way they did a couple weeks ago. I mean, I'll talk about Gonzaga more later. I don't want to spoil everything, but a couple weeks ago, they beat Kentucky on the road. I mean, this is a Gonzaga team that's playing as good as anybody. They have the coaching advantage with Mark Few. He's the best, one of the best coaches in the country, let alone the WCC. So, yeah, I think Gonzaga-St. Mary's Part 3 is going to happen in that championship game. I think Gonzaga is going to win.
And that's huge for Gonzaga because they are a bubble team right now and are in desperate need of a victory in the WCC to get on to the NCAA tournament. Again, Elias, you take a look at their matchup against St. Mary's on March 2nd. That would have been on Saturday. It was a dominating performance by the Zags, winning that one 70-57. Do you foresee another similar result?
If Gonzaga and St. Mary's play each other in the chip, yeah. I mean, Gonzaga.
So am I sensing you not thinking it's going to be Gonzaga and St. Mary's?
I think I don't know. I mean, I like the way that St. Mary's is built. They're a very good team. They've had a lot of success in the conference this year. I don't think it's as wide open as you might be led to believe. I mean, I see teams like Santa Clara and San Francisco that have had their good stretches. If they can find a way to channel some of that like mid-season magic that they had in their regular season, I think they could, get a little weird in a matchup with St. Mary's. But I do think Gonzaga, I mean, like you guys talked about, the format's just crazy for the WCC. They win 2 games. Gonzaga just has, I mean, think about how many times they've won back-to-back conference games this year. They do that one more time in their conference champions. So, yeah, I think Gonzaga wins this one without a ton of trouble, but I wouldn't be so sure that a team like Santa Clara or San Francisco doesn't put up a fight. So those are good shooting teams.
Yes, 100%. Gonzaga is on an 8-game winning streak right now going into WCC conference play. Again, we'll move on to some other conferences that aren't just settled yet. A lot of conferences still have a couple games left to play. We'll go on ahead and get started with, in my mind, the best conference in college basketball right now, the Big 12. And we'll get started with them. Guys, this is dominated right now by Houston at 13-3, but right behind them is Iowa State at 12-4. Again, we really don't know how this conference tournament's going to shape out whenever it's all said and done. But who are your favorites at this current point in time? I mean, Houston just seems like they have been absolutely the team to beat all season long. Cole, I'll start with you.
I actually think it could be a bubble team that comes out of this conference, because what we find in these big conference tournaments is the teams that are set in stone, like Houston, I mean, as long as they don't stumble, no matter who they lose to in this conference tournament, they're probably going to get a 1 seed. That those players probably aren't going to be as motivated. They're not really, I mean, a Big 12 championship doesn't really pad their goals for the season when they're looking towards the national championship. So I think you could find a team like, BYU that's playing for a better seed, or TCU, Texas, that are playing to get in the tournament, that could upset some people and make a run and make their case for the NCAA tournament.
Elias, what do you got?
I think it's Houston until it's not. I mean, they're, in my opinion, pretty far and away, especially after what we've seen from Kansas lately. I think Houston's pretty set in stone, the best team in the conference, the best team in the country. Guard plays what wins you games in March. And, I mean, that's with, oh my gosh, their names are slipping. Cryer and Shed. I mean, this is, like, probably the best, like, two-headed monster guard duo that we've seen in a while. And so I think it's Houston until it's not. I've got a lot of friends in Iowa State, so I've made this argument a lot. please don't let anybody trick you into thinking that Iowa State is going to do anything this month.
Wow. Okay.
They're a stellar defensive team, right?
Mhm.
But as unpredictable as college basketball is, there's a predictability to it, to the unpredictable nature. You pretty much have to be in the top 20, 25 in KenPom in both offensive and defensive efficiency. They're not. They're outside the top 60 in adjusted offensive efficiency. So as well as you can defend, they don't have scores. They're not going to do much in this conference tournament, and not looking ahead too much to the big tournament in a couple weeks. But I think they're a popular pick to get bounced.
And I think the weird thing about Iowa State, which is dissimilar to every other team in Big 12, they're 3-5 against teams ranked in the AP poll. They're 17-0 at home.
Who are those three losses? The losses to?
Well, they've lost to Houston.
Okay.
Oh, losses to 3-5 in the against teams. They have 5 They have a losing record against teams that are in the AP poll. They've lost to Houston. They've lost to Baylor. They've lost to Oklahoma when they were ranked. And so I think this is a team that, I think they have to get a couple more big wins, to your point, Elias, for you to trust them in March.
I want to talk about a Kansas team right now that has struggled, to say the least, down the stretch. Yes, they've dealt with injuries, but really coming down the stretch, they went 0-2. We'll talk about them here in a little bit after losing to BYU and Baylor. Is Kansas a potential team that could get hot at the right time and really make a run in the Big 12? Cole, I'll go to you.
Absolutely, I think so. I mean, they're extremely inconsistent, but they still have one of the best coaches in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll use the same stat I just talked about Iowa State. They're 7-3 first teams ranked in the AP poll. I mean, it's a team that shows up in big games. I know a lot of those wins came at Allen Fieldhouse, but this is a team that shows up in big games. They're very familiar with the Big 12 championship being right next door. So, I don't think anybody would be surprised if Kansas is right there in the final.
Let's move on to the SEC, guys. This is another conference that is really still up for grabs between probably about 4 teams right now. Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, and Auburn, all within about a game of each other. Tennessee and Alabama currently tied at 13-3, and then Alabama is 12-4, So Tennessee right now at the top of the SEC. Guys, this is another conference that is really fun to watch in an offensive standpoint. A lot of great offensive teams in this conference. Where do you all see this shaping out? Elias, I'll go to you.
Well, as far as who wins the conference tournament, I think it's Auburn.
Okay. You think they're going to get hot at the right time?
I do. I really, really trust Aiden Holloway is just a pure scorer. I mean, this kid gets buckets. Johnny Broome has been one of the most unsung heroes in the country this year, as far as just putting up numbers without, having a ton of flash to his game. I think Auburn's a team. They've still got quite a bit to play for seed wise. Like you said, they're barely trailing.
They're not too far back.
No, just 11-5. They're only a game back of Alabama and South Carolina, 2 games back at Tennessee. This is a good Auburn team that, again, top 20 in both offensive and defensive efficiency in KenPom. I could definitely see them giving any team in this conference a run for their money, but it is hard to bet against the Dalton Connect Tennessee team.
You just took the words out of my mouth. I was about to talk about Tennessee. This team has been so much fun to watch in my eyes all season long. And in my eyes, I think they're the team to beat whenever it comes to the SEC. Cole, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Watching that game when they're going on the road to Alabama and winning the way they did.
Especially with Dalton Connect not playing particularly well.
At all. Didn't even score 20 points. And so, which didn't even score 20 points, but for his standards.
It's a bad game.
Yeah, Tennessee, a game up on everybody. I think they're the guys to beat. 6 wins in a row. I think they're the last 1 seed right now if you were to make the bracket today. But, I agree with Elias. I think a team like Auburn or Kentucky, just a couple games back, their offenses are so good that it doesn't matter if you score 90, they'll score 105, and they'll beat you on a neutral floor. So, I think that will be – the SEC might be the best conference tournament this year.
The Kentucky Wildcats have just been an offensive juggernaut of a team as of recent. They scored 117 against Alabama, 91 against Mississippi State, and then 111 Arkansas. I'll talk about them a little bit later because – it's certainly their defense is what has very much concerned me as of recent. But we'll keep on going on with our conference tournament look-aheads, and we'll go to the Big Ten Conference. Guys, this conference has already been locked up by the Purdue Boilermakers, clinching at least a share of the Big Ten Conference regular season title. So they will be the number 1 overall seed whenever it comes to playing in Minneapolis. Guys, a lot of teams that could potentially give Purdue some fits, but in my eyes, this is Purdue's conference tournament to lose. Elias, I'll go to you because I know you got some strong feelings here, especially wearing a very interesting choice of jersey here with the St. Peter's Peacocks.
So, just a big St. Peter's fan. This has nothing to do with Purdue. I've always been a St. Peter's guy.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah, back when they. No, I'm just kidding. No, I just felt like this jersey was apropos to remind everybody that, it's Purdue's time to shine in March. This is where they play their best basketball. They were in mid-March form just a couple weeks ago when they lost to Quad 3 Ohio State with an interim coach. So I don't know. I think obviously it's Purdue's tournament to win.
I mean, they walked through it last year.
Yes, they did. Definitely going to be tough to see any team sort of usurp that conference tournament from them. But I mean, like we've been saying, there are teams with a lot to play for. Indiana, as bad as they've been the entire season, starting to get hot at the right time, maybe with Xavier Johnson back in the lineup, has been good for them. I don't see the top teams in the Big Ten giving Purdue fits, like the Illinois, the Northwesterns.
You're going to think it's going to be a surprise team because Ohio State is one of those teams that made a great run last year in the tournament.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be a team with a guard that can score at will. I could definitely see that tandem of Bruce Thornton and Roddy Gale doing some good things because, I mean, Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer are very good guards. Not necessarily the best defensively. Their defense is interior. They're not terrific at defending the outside shot. I could see a team like Nebraska with some really physical guys down low, but also, I mean, Kisei Tominaga can get buckets. The guy just kind of scores at will. He's a good facilitator, so when he's hitting, I mean, he's still going to be able to find guys. Nebraska is definitely, for me at least, the team to watch.
I'll say Nebraska is certainly my dark horse to win the Big Ten because, I mean, I've watched them so many times this year, and they're just such a fun team to watch. They play the game extremely fast. I definitely think they could give some teams a lot of fits, but it's really after number 1 and number 2 in the Big Ten between Purdue and Illinois. Everything after that is essentially up for grabs seeding-wise. I've gone complete megalomaniac trying to figure out what is some of the best-case scenarios for some of these teams. Indiana, again, obviously the Hoosiers right here, but they definitely have some momentum coming into the tournament. Now, can they continue that and string together wins? They haven't been able to do that all season. Who really knows? Cole, who are some other teams that you're really looking at in the Big Ten besides Purdue and Illinois?
And Michigan.
I love the Nebraska pick. I think, you always go with the team that, I mean, they beat Purdue once this year.
Exactly.
But I like Iowa. I mean, it's a team that's right just with all those other clumped up teams in the middle. But Iowa's had a lot of success in the Big Ten tournament this year. Remember a couple of years ago when they won the Big Ten tournament. So I think this is a team that's just like we talked about. If you're going to beat Purdue, you have to do it the outside shot. Peyton Sanford. You got to have guys that can just fill it up, can go off on a night and kind of counteract Edey. So, I like Iowa. I love the Nebraska pick. I mean, this is Purdue's to lose. It really is. If most of these teams run into Purdue, they're going to need a miracle game. But, I think Iowa's a little bit of a dark horse in this tournament.
I don't know, man. I mean, Iowa's part of a very, for the record, Iowa's part of a very elite group of teams that have, there's a very small number of these teams that have lost to Indiana in 2024. And that's Iowa. So, you're right. I mean, they could be right there.
All right, we'll move on to the Big East Conference. This is the conference of the defending national champions, the UConn Huskies, who have already locked up the Big East after their win over Seton Hall, 16-2 and 26-3 overall. Guys, Tristan Newton said recently that it's harder to win the Big East than the national title.
Wow.
That says volumes, in all honesty, about how good the Big East has been. Now, this year, have they been up to the standard that they've been as of recent years? I don't think so. I think they're very top-heavy between UConn, Marquette, and Creighton. And then after that, it's just a lot of other teams that have the ability to be teams to look out for whenever it comes to March, some of those upset teams. But, again, I'm going to say it. This is another one where it's really that top teams to lose, UConn. But again, like you all made the mention earlier about the Big 12 in Houston, are there just going to be those other teams that are going to surprise you in the Big East, Cole?
Well, I think I disagree with Tristan Newton's comments because Georgetown and DePaul are about as far
Yeah.
away from the NCAA tournament as you can get. So with those two on your schedule, I think you get a couple cupcakes here and there. But yeah, I think this one is UConn or Creighton.
Okay.
I don't think Marquette, especially with Kolek being out
Mhm.
injured and Isaac
Exactly.
Odora being out injured right now. I think it's UConn or Creighton. The way UConn handled their business against Seton Hall. I mean, Seton Hall is the fourth best team in the Big East right now, and they just 30-balled them
Yes.
the other night. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not picking. I would never bet against Houston here in this, or against UConn here in this scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Hard to bet against UConn, but I do like Creighton.
Mhm.
Creighton's metrics are astounding. I mean, Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman, these are two of the better 2-3s in the country. They got a lot of experience. That's a junior and a senior. Ryan Kalkbrenner, one of the best centers in the game right now, 8th in the country in both true shooting percentage and effective field goal percentage. That's a pool of about 1,300 players, and he's 8th in both. I mean, this is a guy who is just going to be solid, and I can see him go toe-to-toe with any big in the country. It's going to be difficult with Donovan Clingan because as much as I love to sing Ryan Kalkbrenner's praises, Donovan Clingan might just be a better version of Ryan Kalkbrenner. But no, I definitely like Creighton. I think they've got a shot at it. It's by no means only UConn's. It's not like UConn's just going to run away with it. So Creighton's definitely a team to watch out for. But like you said, I mean, it's very top heavy because after Creighton, the fall off is ridiculous.
Exactly.
Just straight down to Seton Hall.
Is there any other team in this conference that could even give teams like UConn and Creighton a run for their money? Like, I don't want to say they're playing good, but they have won 3 straight after losing 3 straight. St. John's with Rick Pitino right there. Again, I know Elias has a lot to say about that team, but Cole, is there any other team that you can see?
I don't dislike St. John's, but mostly because they're playing at home, which now the committee is going to factor that in, so that hurts their resume a little bit. But they are in Madison Square Garden. However, we all know how good UConn is at Madison Square Garden. We all know how
Exactly.
good Marquette is at Madison Square Garden. So yeah, I think St. John's could make a run, but I don't see it being too likely.
Elias, you see anybody else?
I don't like St. John's. Only strictly from a metric standpoint, St. John's just isn't competing with Creighton, Marquette, and UConn. St. John's isn't competing with current Marquette. With Oso Ighodaro out, with Tyler Kolek out, they don't hold a candle to that Marquette team. Butler's had some good moments this year, but they've also had some really bad moments.
I think if they're on, they could certainly make a run, but I think once they hit like a UConn or a Marquette, it's over.
Yeah, they could win a couple games. They're not making it to the championship if they have to go through Connecticut, Marquette, or Creighton. I guess it depends how the bracket sort of shapes out. If they take on Marquette without Kolek and Ighodaro, things could get a little dicey for the Golden Eagles. But no, I don't really think there's a team that you could bet on to sneak into that.
It was recently reported that Kolek would be out for probably around 2 games. That's exactly the amount of games they have left in the regular season before conference tournament starts. We'll go to our final Power 5 conference in the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. Guys, this is one that certainly could be up for grabs. North Carolina and Duke both there at the top. Carolina at 15-3, Duke at 14-4. And then after that, again, it's a pretty steep drop-off after that. But a lot of teams, just like the Big Ten, are fighting for those positions from 3 all the way down to, I won't put Louisville in that aspect because the Cardinals just marked this season as over. So who do you all really see as the main contenders in the ACC? Cole.
I like Duke, actually. I mean, I know they lost to North Carolina earlier this year, but
And especially with Phil Bowski just being completely
talk about a return.
injured.
I mean, did you see that windmill? He felt great.
That was incredible.
I was going to say, after his leg essentially got chopped off at the knee. Yeah, really inspirational.
Yeah, I think Duke's playing really well. They've won a couple in a row. I know North Carolina's won 4 in a row, but they get North Carolina at home here soon. And if they win that game, they're now tied at the top of the ACC standings. So go to a bunch of tiebreaker stuff. But yeah, I like Duke the way they're playing. I think North Carolina kind of peaked at the wrong time. I mean, they were like almost a sure 1 seed like a month ago, and now they've had some struggles. So I think Duke's going to take that one. But I do think it's the top 2 or nothing. I don't think anybody else wins it.
Elias, what do you think?
Well, I think it's recently been suggested that Joe Flacco should give his Comeback Player of the Year award to Kyle Filipowski after he tore his ankle off essentially. And then, I mean, was back, like you said, doing windmills on the court. Really, really inspirational from the young man. Great attitude from him and from the whole Duke program. But no, I got to be honest. I think it's North Carolina. I think it'll be close, and I think it's just them two teams.
So
sort
we
of
think
alone
it's
at the
going to be
top.
that typical North Carolina Duke matchup potentially in the ACC championship.
I think it should be.
Yeah.
I think to prevent that, there would have to be an upset. And obviously, it is March. Stuff happens. But I just really like the way North Carolina looks. I mean, this is a team that's battle-tested. They've sort of been through the ringer the last few years, ups and downs, obviously going from number one ranked preseason last year to missing out on the dance entirely. But I mean, the team stuck around, right? They've still got RJ Davis. They've still got Armando Bacot. They brought in Paxton Wojcik and Cormac Ryan. This is a good team. They're definitely still one of my picks to maybe make a late run in March, and I think they can handle Duke.
Elias, are you still picking RJ Davis as National Player of the Year?
I don't know if I'm still picking RJ Davis, but I'm certainly still not picking Zach Edey.
All right, well, we'll have to see what happens. Beyond North Carolina and Duke, again, I'm kind of with you guys. Again, like you said, Elias, it's March. Anything can happen. I just don't see another team really after them that can really pose that much of a threat. Yeah, Virginia has been an insane defensive team all season long, but their offense is just not there. And as much as people want to say that defense will win you championships, you still need some offense to be able to score the basketball. Do you see Virginia potentially being able to kick up a notch in the ACC?
I might have if they didn't get beat by 30 by Duke the other night. I mean, they have shown some potential with how good their defensive is. They won a lot of close games, but they give up 73 points to Duke. They lost to North Carolina 54-44. I mean, if you're scoring in the 40s, you're not winning that, especially games in a row in the ACC tournament. You're going to have to do better than that on the offensive end.
Well, we'll end our talks about conference tournaments, but don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, because 2 weeks from now, we've got spring break up here in Bloomington, but 2 weeks from now, we will be talking almost exclusively on March Madness and the bracket at hand whenever it is revealed on Selection Sunday. We'll go to our normal segments now that we usually do throughout the course of our weeks. We'll take a look at our top games from this weekend. Guys, I want to start with Baylor versus Kansas. The Baylor Bears were able to knock off Kansas 82-74 at home. What did you all see from this game, especially from Baylor able to knock off Kansas? Elias?
I mean, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, really. I mean, definitely Kansas looks a little out of sorts for a team that's got a lot of experience, obviously, with DeJuan Harris and Hunter Dickinson having, spent, most of their lives already in college basketball. Gosh, get a job, Lord.
They're making money. To be completely fair, they are making money.
Yes, much more than I ever will. So I guess I don't really have it in me to really make fun of them for what they're doing. I mean, really, the Kansas offense just looked pretty stagnant. Definitely worked the ball in the paint well, but how about as a team, only 4 of 13 from 3? Those are that's Indiana Hoosiers numbers, guys. That's just above 30% from 3. And I don't know. This Baylor team, obviously, they're very good. I don't know if they're a team that's going to make a ton of noise in March, but this is a team that you probably maybe 3-4 weeks ago would have expected Kansas to just come in and take care of business against, especially Allen. I mean, they were on a 19-game regular season win streak at Allen.
So it was something like that. It was incredible.
Yeah, a wild win rate, and just gets unseated by Baylor. I don't know. It's alarming to me because this was a Kansas team that I thought could make some noise this month, and now I'm questioning that a little bit because, I mean, yeah, this Baylor's team is very good. Jacoby Walter, he's the talk of the town right now as, arguably a top 10 pick in the draft. But outside of him, there's not really a ton of going on or a ton of stuff going on. They let Yves Missy give him 17. Jaden Nunn gave him 18. Ray J. Dennis gave him 19. Kansas just has to be better on both ends of the court.
And the Jayhawks had fallen to 9-7 in Big 12 play, which is one of their worst positions in the Big 12 in years. We'll move on to our next game, and that is Houston against Oklahoma. 87-85 was the final score. Now, again, this wasn't a game that you really expected, obviously, Oklahoma to be able to win this basketball game, but it ended up becoming a really incredible ending. What did you see from that game?
Yeah, this showed me a lot about Houston, really. I mean, I think Houston's a team who we've had trust in all year,
Yes.
amazing defensively, but I mean, if we're going to sit here and say that a win on the road at Oklahoma isn't great, I think it is. It's a Big 12 win on the road. Juwan Roberts absolutely showing up. 10 for 12 from the field. Make
That's
sure I was reading that
incredible.
right. 20 points. I mean, in a game where Jamal Shead, your guy, goes 4 for 13, 0 for 3 from 3. You got to have somebody else step up. So, yeah, I think this showed me a lot more about Houston. Oklahoma, we're a team that's now under 500 in the Big 12. We're kind of forgetting about them. But, yeah, I mean, a team where as number ones, everybody's fallen off at some point, especially on the road, and Houston's continued to grind out some good wins. I thought it was a great win by Houston.
Yeah, the Sooners stormed back from down 15 to nearly pull off the stunner. Our final game that we're going to look at is, wow, looks like an NBA type of a score. Kentucky against Arkansas, final score of 111 to 102. I mean, I might as well have been watching an NBA game at that point. Antonio Reeves put up 22 points. I want to get both of your all's thoughts on this game. Again, I said it earlier, Kentucky's defense is certainly alarming to me because they've given up 90 to 100 points here in their last 3 games, and that's certainly going to be a problem going forward. But if their offense can keep them afloat, it's going to continue to produce wins. Elias, what did you think of that game?
I don't know. I mean, it's like you said, it is remarkable how well this Kentucky team is able to score. I mean, 7th in the country in offensive efficiency, 96th in defensive efficiency.
Wow.
Horrible defenders. But then you look at when they play a team like Auburn just a few weeks ago, they held Auburn to 59. Not many teams have been able to do that this year with the way that Auburn has been able to score the basketball. So it honestly, it comes down to which Kentucky team shows up this month. If the Kentucky team that played against Auburn shows up, they're a team that I could see in the Final Four. If the Kentucky team that defended Arkansas this week shows up, because obviously being able to put up 111 speaks volumes about your offense.
But giving up 102.
Allowing 102 to a pretty bottom feeder Arkansas team is honestly says more about that game than holding on for the win at home.
I didn't necessarily count out Kentucky at the beginning of the year, but I definitely had my concerns on how young they were. I didn't think that they had enough veteran leadership on the team, but they've certainly proven me wrong as of recent. Again, if they're able to continue this type of an offensive output whenever it comes time for March, this is certainly a team that can make a deep run whenever it comes to March.
I agree. They could go as deep as anybody, I mean, with that offense. But this game more scared me if you're a Kentucky person. I mean, giving up over 100 points to a terrible SEC team. And we're going to find out who Kentucky is on March 9th. They get to go to Tennessee playing as good as anybody in the country. If that game, I think, will show, is this team ready for March and to make a run, or is this team just going to put up 100 and lose by 10 in the first round?
I'm sure Kentucky fans are already preparing to fire John Calipari. We'll move on to our third segment. That is going to be our flop of the week. Elias, I'll go to you first. Who do you have flopping this past week?
Well, you sort of spoiled it for me a little bit. Maybe this is a little bit out of left field, but I'm going to go with Kentucky.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say the Kentucky offense flopped, but the Kentucky defense.
No question.
I mean, you can't give up 102 points at home to a team like Arkansas and still expect the committee to be favorable to you when it comes to seeding. I mean,
so you think they're going to drop in the seeding because of how their defense is played?
I think they should. I mean, sure, like you can win games with offense. And yes, I've made it clear that I think offense wins championships. But as much as offense wins championships, defense loses you games. Yeah. I mean, this is a team that also lost a game because they gave up 89 to Gonzaga. They gave up 103 to Tennessee this year, 94 to Florida the game before. And, of course, that one's in overtime, so the score's a little bit inflated. But it was 84-84 at the end of regulation. And Florida hasn't been very good offensively this year. They just rebound the ball well offensively, but that's for another time. I just think Kentucky is grossly underperforming like in accordance with the potential of this team. We live in a world right now where Reed Shepherd might be a projected top 10 pick strictly because of his offensive output. Same thing with Rob Dillingham. And they just can't find a way to defend teams. So, yeah, if either of those guys that I just mentioned have an off night offensively, Kentucky's going to get bounced. Kentucky's going to get bounced unless if those guys continue to show up and they find a way to put together some sort of defensive output like they did against Auburn. So, yeah, like Cole said, really discouraging if you're a Kentucky fan to see these kind of scores put up against them the last 3 games.
Cole, who do you have your flop of the week?
My flop of the week is Kansas. We've already talked about them a bunch, but I mean, you lost your home winning streak to BYU. I know BYU is ranked right now, but that's not what happens.
The breaks.
That's not what happens at Allen Fieldhouse. That's not what happens under Bill Self. It's actually the first time that Bill Self has had 7 conference losses in a season. I mean, wasn't too long ago, this team was number 1 in the country preseason, unseating UConn coming back, unseating Purdue, having a bunch of people coming back. And they have a quad 3 loss, and they're now 7-7 in quad 1. This is a team that, I mean, similar to Kentucky, I guess, that you worry that how inconsistent they can be going into the tournament. They could lose first round.
Well, my flop of the week, I'm not going to go a particular team. I'm going to say the fans at the Texas Tech game that happened on Tuesday, actually the day after that we recorded our Men's Monday edition last week. The Texas Tech fans certainly showed their displeasure during that game, throwing stuff onto the floor, causing technicals to be called, some of them even ejected from the game. That just does not need to be happening in that kind of an atmosphere. I understand it's a rivalry game. Tensions are going to flare, and especially Texas just putting down the beating on Texas Tech on the road, winning that game 81-69. I was just very, very upset with the fans at that game, and that doesn't need to happen. We'll move on to our 4th segment, and that is going to be our Fab of the Week. Who performed well this past week? Cole, I'll start with you. Who did perform well?
I loved what Gonzaga did this week. They only had that 1 quad win coming in this week at Kentucky, but now they beat San Francisco and St. Mary's on the road. They've won 8 in a row, 13 of their last 14, and that 1 loss was to St. Mary's by 2 points. So, I mean, we were talking about on the show just a couple weeks ago, is this the year Gonzaga loses and doesn't make the NCAA tournament for the first time in 20-plus years? And now we're going, wait, is this a Gonzaga team that can make the second weekend for the, 8th year in a row that Mark Few has done it? Insane record. So, yeah, I love the way Gonzaga played. I think they're fighting for a top 4 or 5 seed now when they were just on the bubble a couple weeks ago.
Elias.
Got to go with Indiana State and Robbie Avila.
Okay.
I mean, securing that conference tournament for the first, or securing the regular season title for the first time in God knows how many years, bounced back huge after those back-to-back losses to Illinois State and Southern Illinois with wins of, and I'm just going to rattle these off, 19, 15, 18, gosh, math, 18 and 12. I mean, they're not just winning, they're winning in pretty dominant fashion against obviously not great competition, but I'm a big proponent for get rid of like margin of victory and strength of schedule because you can only play the team in front of you. But I digress. They really finished their season on a high note. I'm excited to see what this team has going into the Missouri Valley tournament like we talked about.
Elias, I got to say, have you gotten to an Indiana State game just yet?
Haven't yet because the ticket prices actually cost something now. They used to be free, but we're looking at like $20.
Where is the Missouri Valley Conference tournament at?
I do not know.
Because it wouldn't be.
Could we travel?
I mean,
should we travel?
Should we travel? I don't know. I don't know.
Big 12 tournament, so.
We got to look this up. Okay. It is in St. Louis.
Okay.
Oh, we're going.
It will be in St. Louis.
That's a little bit of a drive.
Like, I'm not actually going, but I'd love to pretend that I am for the sake of the show, just for content.
Yeah, just as long as we get footage, then I will absolutely believe you.
I'm certainly going to watch. I mean, this team
no question.
This team is stellar. I think as of a couple days ago, here's a wild stat: 4 guys in the top 100 in the country in true shooting percentage out of a 1,300 player pool. Not just in the top 100, top 55. Ryan Conwell's 55th, Robbie Avila 14th, Julian Larry 39th, and Jason Kent, a name you don't hear enough, 4th in the country in true shooting percentage.
If we don't have a diehard Indiana State fan on this podcast by now, I think we found one. I'm going to go my fab of the week. I'm going with UConn, mainly because it was the first time since 1999 that the Huskies have won the Big East outright.
Which makes no sense.
I saw that stat and I was blown away because especially with how good UConn has been as of recent, that they haven't won the Big East. That also goes to show how good the Big East has been as of recent. Again, like we said earlier, it seems like, again, it's really top heavy this season with about 3 teams. But yeah, I mean, they blew out Seton Hall 91-61, blew out Villanova 78-54 after that loss to Creighton. I think they're easily one of the best teams in college basketball right now. I believe we saw earlier they leapfrogged Purdue, now at the, I believe, second in the AP Top 25. So speaks volumes for how good UConn has been this season. We're going to get into our final segment here of the day, and it is our shot clock segment. I'm currently getting my phone out, preparing for my stopwatch. Who wants to go first? Cole, Elias, which one of you are more riled up right now?
I always go last. Come on now.
That's true. That's true. We'll go with you, Cole. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, 3, 2, 1, you're on.
This is going back a little bit, but they changed the NIT rules for these teams. I think it was 2 years ago, and they should not have done that. It completely screwed these low major or mid-major teams. They now have it so instead of a team who wins their conference regular season, loses in the conference tournament, gets an automatic bid, it now goes to the net rankings, which are not good to begin with, and it goes to who's the highest net in these power conferences. Coming from a school like Indiana, you know these high major teams don't want to be in the NIT anyway. Give it to these mid-majors that want to play.
That is perfect. 29.66 is the final tally there. I got to agree with you, Cole. I was recently looking at the NIT because obviously Indiana's not even sniffing it right now. But I just wanted to see what the new rules were. That is really tough to see because you saw what happened last season in the NIT. Wisconsin was the only one of the only Power 5 teams in one of the bigger conferences that was in the Final Four of the NIT. And all the other teams were those mid-major teams that deserve to be in there and try and improve their talent. So
and those guys
it's crazy.
Play.
Exactly.
I mean, they come from a small school where they don't get a lot of opportunities against big schools or to win championships. They really want to play, and you're going to give it to these teams that had a bad year. Guys are all out in the transfer portal already. Yeah, I think they should have kept it with the mid-majors.
I completely agree. Elias will save you for last because you're always the best way to end out this podcast. I'm not being sarcastic. Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. I'll tell myself, I guess, here. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. I'm just gonna say it's so good that it is March, baby, and you can feel it in the air. It's just that feeling of it being March. There's nothing like it. Obviously, we've been talking about the conference tournaments are out. Brackets are going to be out here soon enough. I'm going to be filling out probably 40, 50 different brackets. Obviously, I'll have one that is my for certain bracket. This is where dreams will really come true. John Rothstein has to be jumping up in the air right now. 29-7-3. Let's go.
Man.
You got
Putting the pressure on you, Elias.
You need to add up all of the extra time that you guys save and throw that at me.
What do you mean? You probably get maybe a second at this
point. You guys
point.
are quite close.
Okay. All right, Elias, we'll skip it over to you. You ready?
Yeah, all right.
3, 2, 1.
All right, well, I've got some beef with the AP poll right now, guys, primarily because of four teams, and I got to get through this quick. McNeese, Indiana State, and James Madison are all woefully underrated by the AP. McNeese with just 2 votes. That's tied with Michigan State. What has Michigan State done this year other than underperform their potential? They're not good. Michigan State gets bounced, whereas Indiana State, James Madison, McNeese could all win 1 to 2 games in March.
Wow,
nice.
29-7-1. Congratulations, everybody. We kept it under the shot clock. There's no violation. Good job, Elias. I'm so proud of you.
I've never been under the shot clock. Every time needed an offensive rebound.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of The Flop Warning. Be sure to follow The Flop Warning on all of our social media platforms to stay up to date on this season of college basketball. Until next time, alongside Cole Nabi and Elias Corey, I'm Hayden Smith saying thank you so much for watching and have a great day, college fans.